All right, all right, all right. All right, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. Let's talk about the election. We are so back, and it is so over. That is, I think, the best comment on what we've just experienced. A shout out to random. What is this girl's name? Random Twitter ethot Elizabeth C. Heroin. She nailed it, dude. We are so back and it is so over. It is the best of times and the worst of times. We're winning, we're losing, everything's great, everything's shit. It's the end of the world and it's a fresh beginning. That is what this election is. You'll have to excuse me, I've had the flu all week, so I may be sniffing and coughing all the way through this video presentation. Of course, I will attempt to edit it all out. But maybe a few will slip through, and anyway, maybe you'll hear my voice is a bit like, maybe I just sound like a fucking mong, basically, because I feel like a mong. Is it basically how I feel right now? But anyway, I said that I'd start doing a video a week, and so here I am. I thought, maybe let's bash out some thoughts. Let's talk about the election. We've just had the election. It's finally here. We're finally going to get the Labour government that we've been fearing, or at least I've been fearing, for basically the last 8 years. Essentially, I've just been living in fear. When is this hammer going to come down? Kind of like the Fabian Society, isn't it? You know the motto of the Fabian Society? It's a tortoise. And the motto is, when I strike hard. So he walks very, very slowly, but when it's time, boom, it all comes down. And here we are. Finally got the Labour government. I have been positive and enthusiastic about British politics for the last 8 years, since 2016, since I first started getting involved. And I've always been hopeful that we could have some kind of internal revolution within the Tory party. This is what I've always prayed for, because it always seemed to, well, not always, I mean, I've looked for different things. I did support UKIP back in the day when it looked like they had a chance, when Jared Batten was the leader. But since that all fell to pieces because nobody wanted to support UKIP, since that time onwards, I've basically been arguing for Tory entryism, and I've basically just been saying that, we need to get inside this party and flip it. And it looks like we had a chance when we got rid of Boris. We got Liz Truss, and she was good. Everybody likes to dump on her. But she wanted to lower taxes, and she got stitched up by the Bank of England. She wrote a whole book about it. Personally, I think she should have been stronger and smarter, and she shouldn't have quit, and she should have sorted things out. But nonetheless, I think despite her faults, her heart was in the right place. She was a nice middle-class white woman who cares about the country and wanted the best thing for this country, and she was voted for by the members of the Tory party, and instead of supporting her, they turned against her, bumped her off, and then replaced her with the man who the Tory party membership specifically did not vote for, which is Rishi Sunak, an arch globalist, a man who, everyone seems to forget this, but he's the one that stopped the austerity. I mean, I know this is all a very long time ago, but do people remember when it was George Osborne? Was it Osborne, wasn't it? Yeah, it was George Osborne back in the day, Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was a you-know-who, by the way, in case you didn't know. But do you remember the days of austerity? Do you guys remember that? You remember the big financial crash we had 15 years ago? We never quite recovered from it. Remember that Tory party policy was austerity, it was in the newspapers all the time. Who's the guy that came along and wrecked all that? He wasn't the Chancellor of Exchequer straight after Osborne, because we had a few after that. We had Philip Hammond, Sajid, what's his face? But he came along in COVID, and he opened the gates and started spending all the money. So he created the cost of living crisis, and then somehow or another he becomes Prime Minister. to oversee the cost of living crisis that he created, and nobody called him to account for it. You know what I mean? This fucking guy. This is what we were given, and so now he's been rejected, and the Tory party's died. But anyway, the point I've been trying to make is that we did have a chance to practice entryism. We did have a chance to flip the party from within. This is what I've been arguing for a long, long time. This is why I've been quite positive. I thought, no, we can do it. We've had Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, 4 prime ministers in a row, and then it's Rishi, and I thought, you know what, just one more backbench rebellion, and we'll get rid of Rishi, and we'll put somebody decent in, and we'll finally fix it. But it's not happened. And so we've got Labour. That's what we got. And people are saying that, okay, well, this is, Nigel Farage's fault. This is Reform's fault. They stole the Tory vote. Well, I've actually seen Mog talking about this and a few other people, but the Tory vote doesn't actually belong to the Tories. The Tories don't own our votes, okay? We are not duty bound to vote for these people. If they do a good job, we should vote for them. If they don't do a good job, we shouldn't vote for them. And I know this is the big argument that's going on Twitter right now. Everybody's seen it. Peter Hitchens doubling down again and again and again, arguing that we have to vote Tory, because if we don't, Labour will get in, and Labour will be utterly horrendous and terrible, and they will destroy the country, and things will be awful, and we might not be able to bounce back from it. And the thing is that, first of all, I don't really believe that we can't bounce back from Labour. I mean, but he might be right. It's not impossible, because who knows, Keir Starmer could just write. I mean, I said this before on a live stream, but Keir Starmer could just say, okay, we need more multiculturalism in the armed forces, and all of a sudden we've got 100,000 armed Muslims. Do you know what I mean? Right? In the armed forces, like an alternative army, and then they just coup the government. And I mean, it's not completely impossible. We don't have the right to bear arms in this country. We've just had 4 jihadists just get elected, which is an unprecedented change in government. So it might be the worst thing ever. We might have a Labour tyranny. We might have another lockdown this winter. I haven't seen anybody talking about this yet, but it's probably going to happen, right? Or if not this winter, then maybe next. And if we do have another lockdown, I can pretty much guarantee you, under a Labour government, it's going to be forced vaccinations. And I can pretty much guarantee you we won't come out of the lockdown. And it does seem to me that, I mean, people overlook this, but people like to hate the Tories, and I hate the Tories, but yes, they put us in lockdown, but also they took us out. The Labour government, I don't think, would have taken us out. And Boris Johnson getting kicked out of government for the whole Partygate scandal, and essentially getting embarrassed by that whole thing. And I don't know who leaked. Remember the whole. Anyway, I don't know who leaked all this information, but remember the whole scandal that happened at that time. It embarrassed the government and forced them to end the lockdown. I don't think that would have happened under Labour. And I think the Tory government coming out of lockdown had a big influence on other countries in the world to come out of lockdown. So I think I do feel like we played a key role in getting out of that trap. Of course, Russia invading the Ukraine had a lot to do with it as well. But nonetheless, if we had a Labour government, we'd probably still be in lockdown. I mean, who knows, right? So is it going to be terrible? Is it going to be like utterly horrific Soviet Union style tyranny for the next 5-10 years, and we'll never be able to recover, which is what Hitchens seems to be implying? Maybe, but we don't know. We don't know. So I think Hitchens' first point that, Labour will completely destroy us and we will never recover, I think it's actually quite false. I think Labour is not. I mean, as I say, we just don't know. Like, is Starmer going to turn out to be a moderate centrist, or is he going to turn out to be totally far left loony? Until he starts doing stuff, we're never going to know, right? Because no matter what he says or what you think he said in his manifesto, the proof is in the pudding, and we'll find out over the course of the next year, essentially. But I don't think Labour are in that much of a powerful position because nobody actually wants them. They didn't get elected because people like them. They just got elected because the right-wing vote was split between Tory and Reform. That's all that's happened here. And people are pointing out that Keir Starmer got less votes than Jeremy Corbyn in, I think, 2017. They might have got more votes than Jeremy Corbyn in 2019, but don't quote me on that. But he's not, like, extraordinarily popular. And he doesn't have a message. And this Labour landslide is not like the landslide of 1997, where Blair genuinely did have a different message, because of course he took clause 4 out of the Labour manifesto, and so it was a different type of Labour government that was not dedicated to nationalising everything in a socialist way. Essentially, Tony Blair's government was a Thatcherite Labourism. I mean, no, they would never admit it, but they essentially just accepted all of the economic principles of Margaret Thatcher, and then just added more mass immigration and more homosexuality and more censorship, and printed more money and just gave it away. And that's what Blairism was. So people were, I mean, it was stupid for them to be excited about it, but at least there was something different for them to be excited about. Nobody's excited about Keir Starmer. So it's not going to take long for people to get fed up with him. It's not going to take long at all. It's going to be shit, and the country's going to continue to be shit, and they'll have a honeymoon period of a year or maybe 2 years, and then they'll be able to blame everything on the Tories for a while and say, look, just give us a chance, we'll fix things, and then people are just going to get fed up with them. So, Hitchens is saying, if Labour get in, we'll never bounce back. I don't know, and there's all this talk about, they're going to rig the parliament. Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will pass all kinds of laws which add all kinds of different layers of bureaucracy, which makes it really difficult for MPs to get anything done. It's amazing, actually. The civil service released a video. I mean, this is quite stunning. They released a video of Labour marching into the civil service, and all the civil servants are standing there clapping their hands. I mean, this is just like, wait, what? That's obscene. They're supposed to be impartial, and they're just openly declaring that they love the Labour Party. I mean, it's incredible. So, yes, the Labour Party will stitch up the system, but nonetheless, Parliament is supreme, and in 5 years' time there will be a pushback, and Parliament can then just, whoever gets elected, whether it's a transformed, genuinely right-wing Conservative Party or whether it's Nigel Farage and Reform, the laws can be changed. Unless, of course, they just cheat. Unless, of course, we just have deeply embedded voter fraud, which is not impossible at all, in which case we really are screwed. So I don't know, guys. I'm 50-50. It might actually just be the end of the world and Hitchens is right, or maybe Hitchens has just overblown it and we're going to be okay. I don't know. But nonetheless, the Hitchens argument that we have to, you use your vote to vote against what you don't want. I would have gone along with it if it wasn't for Nigel Farage. And I did argue earlier on in the year that, earlier on in the year, I told everybody I wanted to vote Reform. That's because at the beginning of the year I thought, we got a chance, things are looking positive, and if Farage gets involved, then we can maybe we can smash the Tories, because everyone hates the Tories, nobody likes Labour, so it's an open goal. So if they just build up enough momentum, we could smash Parliament and take it over, right? I mean, 17 million people voted for Brexit. 17 million. And that Brexit vote is still out there. And I just thought, well, if Farage can get that, because it takes about 10 million to get a government elected, if Farage could just get enough of that, he can smash both parties. So that was my feeling back in January. And then, of course, Richard Tice cucked to Hope Not Hate, and that was a major disappointment because he lost the internet vote, and nobody really knows how big the internet vote is. Could be a few million, and it seems like it is a few million. Nobody mentions it or measures it because the establishment doesn't want to know or admit that the vote is out there, because of course the establishment doesn't own the internet vote. It's an uncontrolled vote. It's genuinely and generally a right-wing vote, but nonetheless Tice basically lost the internet vote, and so I lost hope for reform. And then I was just saying, well, yeah, let's vote Tory, right? Let's vote Tory. And actually, I did feel like the Tory party has been turning around. Now, I do admit, like, they are... I'm aware that the Tory party is completely shit. It is the party of mass immigration. It is the party of transgenderism. But if you don't have Farage at the head of reform, and if Richard Tice is going to be an idiot, then, okay, better Tory than Labour. I mean, and in that respect, I would agree with Hitchens, because reform had no chance of winning, so why bother? And also, things appear to be sort of turning around. We had the Cass report, which has changed a lot of opinions on transgenderism. We had another report, which I forget, an economic report pointing out that mass immigration is actually bad for the economy. This came out. It was covered by the Lotus Eaters. And people, it seemed like in the background, opinions were changing. We had Liz Truss and her popcorn thing, which I guess is just completely dismantled now, because they're both still in the Tory party, right? But both Liz Truss and Morg are out of government, which is incredible. But it seemed like things were sort of maybe in the background turning our way, so I thought, yeah, I'll vote Tory, but then Farage just popped up. And that's it. I can't bring myself to vote Tory when there is a genuine opportunity for something different and a genuine chance that maybe that old Brexit vote will get engaged and maybe we can win it. But of course it didn't work out like that. But it was close. It was close. I guess one of my major takeaways from this whole election is just... Why didn't Farage just start campaigning in January, right? I mean, when he popped back up on the surface, because I wanted to support him and put some energy into him, I did say, this is the best move to make, because he's avoided all the drama, he's avoided being this boring, perennial character on the edges of politics, constantly trying to get a vote voted. And now he's just popped back in, and it's like a media sensation. Whereas if he had been the candidate all this time, then it wouldn't have made such a media sensation. And I've seen Richard Tice say they had a secret plan. So I mean, I think this was the secret plan all along. So I kind of supported it. I supported the way that he did it, in that he said, I didn't want to get elected, but the people wanted me to, and now I've got the mandate of the people. It's a great play to make. But on retrospect, I think if he'd have started campaigning in January, we might be in a much different situation. Especially looking at the way that he was going up and down the country doing those big meetings, and people coming to see him, paying £5 to come and hear Farage speak. I mean, he set that up pretty quickly, and that was going on up and down the country. Imagine if he'd been doing that since January. I mean, a lot of these seats were very close, especially up north, Reform versus Labour. A lot of these seats were just lost by 1,000 or 2,000 votes. So I do feel like, I do feel like we could have got it, to be honest with you. I feel like it wasn't... I feel like it could have been done. But it didn't start in January, and so here we are. But the points I want to make in regard to the Hitchens argument, okay? Because this is the big debate right now. Hitchens is the original guy who said, don't vote Tory. He said this back in 2010. Like, do not support David Cameron because there's been a coup within the Tory party. Cameron's taken over and he's not a real Tory. And if he gets into power, we're just going to have Tory Blairism and it's going to be shit. That was what Hitchens said back in 2010. And he was probably right back then, you know. But it didn't happen, and we ended up with what happened, right? Now Hitchens, of course, has changed his mind, and he's saying, no, you've got to keep voting Tory. You know, I don't... People are bashing him for this, saying, oh, you've changed your mind. Look, if the situation changes, then change your mind. That's fine. Like, the situation in 2010 is a lot different to the situation in 2024, right? So... But this is the argument. It's essentially Peter Hitchens against the rest of the internet right now, and I think partly he's doing it for his own benefit, because then he can just sit there on the internet for the next 5 years saying I was right, and every time something shit happens, he can just sit there and say, look, I told you not to vote for reform, and that's, you know, so he's a doomer. He does like to play that prophet of doom role in society, and I guess somebody's got to play it, right? All the world is a stage, and different people have different roles to play. You know, I actually genuinely believe this. I don't know if it happens deliberately. It doesn't happen deliberately, I don't think, or maybe it's something, I don't know how it works, but like, you look at any country, somebody is the villain, somebody's the hero, somebody's the young virgin, somebody's the old whore, somebody's the magician, somebody's the prophet of doom. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are different kind of archetypes, and in the public sphere of any country, it seems to me anyway that people just fall into these categories, you know. So Hitchens is the prophet of doom, and he's just playing his role and whatever. But anyway, this is the argument. This is what everyone's debating. And essentially, the Hitchens argument is, well, you vote against what you don't want, right? So I would have agreed with him, and I was going to go along with it until Farage popped up. And then it's like, nah, I've got to vote for Farage. And because we got a chance. We got a chance for change. And it's kind of worked. Like I said, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. We've got Farage in. To be honest with you, if I had a good Tory MP in my borough, I would have voted for them. Like, if I was in Liz Truss's constituency, I would have voted for her. I would have voted for Jacob Rees-Mogg, but I don't have a good Tory MP. So, you know, I mean, people are throwing around lists on the internet, like 50 good Tory MPs, don't let them get knocked out, this kind of thing. I think actually if Farage, well, I don't know, I'd have to think about it a bit more, but I mean, if Farage had given like clemency to some of these people and said, look, these people are good and we want to be able to work with these people, so we're not going to run a reform candidate in that area, that would have been a very nice thing to do. Because then there would have been more people for Farage to work with. Now, currently, because the situation in the Tory party is, of course, that the way it's organised, they've given a lot of the safe seats to just these woke, wet Tories. This is what people are calling them, wet Tories. So now a lot of the good Tories have been wiped out, and all we're left with is wets, right? And fake Tories, and I mean, we've got this Kemi Badenoch lady who's probably going to end up being the leader, and you know, she's Michael Gove's little puppet, and you know, she's like a pretend Tory, but she's probably just going to be shit. And people have said that she's going to be shit, so it's going to be a nightmare. So we're going to have some black woman leading the Tory party, basically, young black woman as well. I mean, how old is she? No, okay, I was wrong about that. She's 44 years old, so she's the right age. It's okay. Nonetheless, yeah, that's the situation. So the genuine Tories have mostly been kicked out. We're left with a bunch of wets and brown people, and so Farage hasn't got anybody to work with. But anyway, I mean, that's kind of pie in the sky. Like, if you're going to try and win, you should win, right? You should run on a national level. It would send a mixed message if you kind of let some people off the hook. So I understand why he did what he did. That's just a bit of fantasy land from me. But nonetheless, what I wanted to say in regard to the Peter Hitchens argument is that I think the analogy we have to think of is the nuclear analogy, right? It's like voting is like a nuclear deterrent. Okay, so if you're not going to use it, it doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, this is the huge argument about the Labour Party. They say they're not going to use the nukes. Well, if you're not going to use the nukes, then what's the point in having them? In a similar way, for the British public, the only leverage that we have over the government is our vote. And if we're not going to refuse to vote for a shit party, then what leverage do we have over that party? Well, we don't have any. Because then they'll just say, oh, don't worry, the peasants will vote for us because they're scared of Labour. And the response to that, which Hitchens will probably argue, will say, well, then you're just going to nuke the whole country, right? And it's like, yeah, we will, actually. We will just burn everything down. Because what other option do we have? And maybe that sounds psychotic, but that is like that's how nuclear negotiations work, right? That's how hand grenade negotiations work. You know, you've seen in movies where, like, I've seen this in several movies. I can't think of a name of one off the top of my head, but you know, like a guy walks in, he's gonna negotiate with the gangster or whatever, and he's got like a switch in his hand. And it's connected to a bomb, and obviously if they shoot him, he'll drop the switch and the bomb will go off and everyone will die. It's that kind of negotiation. That's what the British public have over the government. And that kind of negotiation doesn't work if you're not actually going to do what you're going to do. So I don't know, man. It's kind of like Hitchens kind of like wants to blame stupid people for voting for reform, right? Oh, you're stupid, you voted for reform, and you've split the votes, and now Labour in. And it's like, well, we're not really the ones that are stupid. Actually, Rishi Sunak is the one that's stupid, and the Tory party are the ones that are stupid because they're the ones that haven't stopped the boats from coming in. Like, if they did what we wanted them to do, we'd vote for them. But they don't. They didn't. I mean, or alternatively, like, Rishi could have just said, okay, we've seen the polls. We know this is going to be bad. We know you guys are supporting Nigel Farage. We know that the vote's going to be split. We should let Nigel into the Tory party. We'll make him Home Secretary. Right, we'll let Lee Anderson and Richard Tice in as well, and we'll make Farage Home Secretary. Boom, and then that's it. They've eliminated the Reform vote, eliminated the Reform Party, and they'd be sitting in Parliament now with a massive majority. That's all they had to do. But they didn't want to do it because they're a bunch of fucking assholes, you know. So it's like, that's it. Is it our fault? Is it our fault for rebelling against a bad government? Right? Is it our fault for rebelling against a bad government? No, I don't think so. It's the government's fault. It's Rishi's fault. He's the one that's destroyed it, and it's all the Tory wets. They're the ones that have destroyed this whole thing. So that's the kind of analogy that I would use in my mind to explain what's happened, you know, in regard to this whole debate that's going on online of should we vote, you know, should we have just voted tactically and vote Tory. And well, like I say, I would have voted Tory if it wasn't for Farage. But as soon as Farage pops out, you knew there was going to be Nigel mania. You knew everyone was going to rally behind him. You knew it was going to be like 2015 again, and he's going to get a whole ton of votes, and that was it. We're just locked into the nuclear option. In some ways, you could argue it would have been better if he hadn't have run. Just putting that out there. I mean, it would have been better if Rishi had just waited till winter. Right? Just another few months. I don't know why he decided to call an election in the middle of summer. It's almost like a psyop. It's almost like he just did a self-demolition of the Tory party in order to get Labour in. I think it's quite possible that is actually what has just happened. I mean, how could he go out in the rain like that? You know, out in the rain doing this I mean, it's almost like he waited for it to start raining in order to go out and declare the election. I mean, it's just retarded. And leaving D-Day like come on, this is just like of such a retarded and incompetent level of stupidity. So there you go, guys. That's how I feel about the election. That's how I feel about the whole Hitchens debate. I'm not an accelerationist. I hate accelerationists. Thoroughly dislike them. So I'm not presenting an accelerationist argument to you. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, push comes to shove, our vote is the only leverage that we have over the government, and that's it, right? It is kind of strange, you know. Nima Parvini, like, I don't like the guy, obviously, because he shits all over Winston Churchill, and he is an accelerationist. I mean, he literally wrote a book called The Populist Delusion, right, declaring that populism is dead, and now all of a sudden he's a Nigel Farage supporter. So how does that even make sense? But he does appear to be a fan of Tony Blair and a fan of Labour, and he's the one that's obviously been pushing this zero seats meme. It's his meme. I mean, you know, respect where respect is due. He's earned his part in British history now. His name will always be connected with this election. But let us not forget that the zero seats meme was an accelerationist meme. This was not a positive meme. This was not zero seats for the Tories so that Farage could get elected. No, that was not Nima Parvini's plan. Nima Parvini's plan was just zero seats for the Tories so that Labour can get elected, right? Let's just be really crystal clear about this. And the guy has been sitting there saying, oh no, Keir Starmer will be good. Keir Starmer's going to sort out immigration. Keir Starmer's going to put away the wokeness and all this kind of bullshit, right? I mean, I hope the guy's right. I don't think he is. But it was an accelerationist meme. I did not, and I do not, and I never will support accelerationism. I voted for reform, and I ditched the Tory vote because there was a chance, there was some hope there, basically. If it wasn't for Farage, I never would have. If it wasn't for Farage, I would have voted for Tory, basically. So what am I trying to say here? On the internet, you have a controlled opposition that pushes doomerism and accelerationism. Okay, they're kind of almost the same idea. That the doomers don't believe that anything can ever be done. They think it's all over and it's hopeless, and they're just depressed and they want to kill themselves, and I don't even know why they're involved in politics. Like, if you're that unhappy, just don't be involved in politics. Go and hang out with ordinary people. Go to the pub. Do some drugs. Take some cocaine. Right? Do some ketamine. This is what kids are into these days. Ketamine, right? Do some fucking drugs. Go to a club, dance, have sex, right? If politics is really depressing you, that is genuine advice, by the way. I'm not even joking, because there's no point being involved in politics if it makes you miserable, because your misery will just drag everybody else down. It's like there's no point going to the party if you're going to be unhappy. You're just going to make everyone in the party unhappy. Like, there's no point marching to the battlefield if you're going to be whispering in the ears of all the other soldiers saying, oh no, this is shit, we're going to lose. Like, just fucking don't march to the battlefield. Stay at home, right? If you want to get into the fight, you should be in it, win it. And you should be positive and you should be upbeat. You know? Don't be a miserable cunt. Nobody wants to listen to a miserable cunt. If you want to get into a fight, you should be in it to win. So I hate doomers. I've always hated doomers. I feel like I spent 8 years of my life fighting against doomers. I've just got nothing but contempt for these depressed people. They should just kill themselves, to be honest with you. Do us all a favour. Or, as I said, learn to enjoy life. Learn to enjoy life first, and then do politics. You know? I've actually got a self-improvement plan, which I'm going to make a video about at some point when I get my shit together. But it's called Fitness. This is my 4-point self-improvement plan, right? Do you guys want to hear this? Okay, it's called Fitness, Finance, Fornication, Philosophy. It's the 4F plan. And what does it mean? Well, the first priority in your life has got to be fitness. You got to be strong. You got to stop eating shit. You got to exercise every day. This will keep your testosterone levels high. This will keep you healthy and happy, right? There's no point being rich if you're a fat cunt. Okay, there's no point trying to fornicate with women if you're a fat cunt. There's no point trying to do philosophy if you're fat and unhealthy, because you'll just have low testosterone and you'll just be attracted to some like weird low testosterone ideology, essentially, right? So the very first thing you got to sort out in your life is fitness. Then sort out the money, right? I mean, you could jump from fitness to fornication. That's true. But really speaking, if you want to fornicate, you kind of should want to have a family, and then you're going to have to feed the children. So just make money, dude. Make money. Sort it out. And I don't mean like get rich, but just like fucking get a decent job and just sort your finances out. You know what I mean? Get a place to live, get a car, get out of debt if you've got debt problems or whatever your financial problems are. Again, I'm not saying become super rich, or I'm not even saying become super fit. It's not about that. I'm just saying fitness first. Get that together. Get your finances together, right? Get a job, get your money together. You got these two things, then you can fornicate, right? Which means get a woman, right? And once you've got your fitness, you got your finances, you got your fornication, then do philosophy, which means then engage with politics, right? And if you try to jump over all of these steps and you go straight to philosophy, so you don't have your fitness sorted out, you don't have your money sorted out, and you don't have a girlfriend, you're going to be a miserable cunt. And you're going to be on Twitter just going, oh, it's fucking shit, everything's shit, and we're all doomed. And it's like, no, fuck off. Just shut the internet down and go to the gym and sort your life out, mate. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying this because I'm a perfect specimen. Obviously, I'm not. But nonetheless, I think it is a good way of looking at things. Right, it's a good way of looking at things. I also think, like, you know, I think there's like a life stage progression that people have to go through. Like when you're young, this is why I don't really think young people should be involved in politics, to be honest with you. Like when you're young, it's very natural and normal for you to be fascinated by your haircut and your clothes and by music and by going to parties and all this trivial, superficial stuff. Okay? It's natural and it's normal for your mind to be chasing after fitness, finance, and fornication, essentially, and self-improvement. Because you're at that. Because what do you do when you're young? Well, you got to meet a woman so you can start a family. That's biologically what you got to do, and you're supposed to be establishing yourself in life. So it's good and healthy and important for you to be doing that at a young age. And then once you've done that and you've established a family, at that point it's like, okay, job done. Now you're essentially middle-aged, you've grown up, right? At that point you look at the kid and the child and the wife and the family, and then you start thinking, okay, mortgage, house, and then you start thinking about the economy, and then you start thinking about history, and then you get involved in politics, basically. So obviously that doesn't work for most people, and it hasn't worked for myself, but I'm just saying that I think that should be the general kind of life path. That's the healthy way to do it. Yeah? Fitness, finance, fornication first. Get that shit sorted out and then do philosophy. Otherwise you're going to end up with an internet and a political movement full of fucking depressed young men. And they're going to be attracted to doomerism, and they're going to be attracted to radical ideologies just talking about killing everybody and burning the system down. And they're going to be incels, and they're going to be attracted to just, you know, psychotic. They're going to fall into this kind of MGTOW kind of I hate women trap, you know, and all this bullshit. And once you get into all of that, that will in itself repel any woman that comes within a 10-mile radius of you, because you're going to be depressed, you're going to be angry, you're going to be thinking about white genocide. You're going to be, oh, fucking women, they're fucking whores, I fucking hate them, oh, they're all on Tinder, and they're screwing, and it's like, women are creatures of vibe. They pick up vibes, okay? And even if you try to hide it, if your mind is filled with that shit, you're going to give off a bad vibe, and they will pick it up, and they won't like it. You know, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Essentially, you fill your mind with these dark thoughts, and then everything gets fucked up, right? Your life gets fucked up. So do the fitness, finance, fornication first, and then do philosophy. Philosophy is the fourth F. Yes, and yes, I do know philosophy spelt with a P. It's a joke, but anyway, I don't know why I'm going on this tangent. Supposed to be talking about the election. Point being, I'm not a doomer. I fucking hate doomers, and I hate accelerationists. Accelerationism is just like the doomer's mutant brother. It's like doomerism to the extreme. It's like the doomer's kind of nihilistic, but he doesn't really want to destroy society. He just accepts that society has been destroyed. The accelerationist wants to destroy society out of anger. So it's like the doomer's angry brother, I suppose. But the accelerationist says vote Labour, make the situation worse, and then things will change. And that is the position of the academic agent. And I think we should all remember this. Because this guy did not say vote reform, and this guy has not supported Nigel Farage, and this guy has not, do you know what I mean? He's not put any effort at all into saying anything positive about Farage or about reform over the last 6 months of this election year. And yet somehow the zero seats meme has kind of like got mixed up with Farage's victory. And I just want to make it really clear so this guy doesn't take the credit. In 5 years' time, if Farage actually does win, which is quite possible, I don't want this cunt to take the credit. Because this cunt never looked or hoped for reform to save the country. That was never his plan. His plan was always vote Labour. It was always an accelerationist plan. But anyway, I'm not an accelerationist. So I guess the point I'm making here is that the zero seats meme is kind of like got mixed up, like inextricably mixed up and muddled up with the reform vote. And that just kind of is what it is. So there you go. I'm going to try and speak for an hour. I've got 15 minutes. So where do we go from here? Moving forwards, we've had the election. Well, the only path, and what we've got to like knuckle down and support right now, is reform, which means entryism. Entryism into the Reform Party. Now, previously, I made an hour-long video saying Tory entryism is the only possible way to save the country. I mean, I kind of stand by that because, and by the way, this is another point. Nobody else is talking about this. Everyone's like, fuck Rishi, got to get rid of Rishi. I don't see any internet commentator speaking about who's going to replace Rishi when Rishi's gone. But my argument always was, do Tory entryism, and if you're in the Tory party, you'll be able to vote for the next leader. That makes sense. If people had listened to me, we'd have 100,000 people in the Tories right now, membership, and we'd be able to pick the best candidate and make them the leader. But people don't listen to me, and so they're just going to get Kemi Badenoch as leader. I haven't really looked at the Tories, so I don't know who's left that's good, to be honest with you, because it's been such a devastating election. So maybe that's just off the cards now anyway. Maybe the Tories really are just dead. But whatever the case, the grand hope for the country now is obviously Nigel Farage in Parliament doing some great speeches on the news cycle, doing some great speeches, pointing out all of the bullshit in the country, and basically leading and uniting the right. And what we have to do is we have to practice we have to practice entryism into the Reform Party. And this is going to be tricky because the Reform Party isn't really a real party, in that Farage established it as a dictatorship. Essentially, he did this, I think, with good reason. He did this because while he was in UKIP, they had so many, like, what would you call it? MI5 entryism, I suppose, or Tory entryism into UKIP in order to screw UKIP up or whatever. But he had to deal with so much managerial bullshit. I think the NEC was the governing body of UKIP, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong about that, but he had to deal with all kinds of busybodies within UKIP, just undermining his power and his message and so on and so forth. And so when they created the Brexit Party and the Reform Party, they established it as a dictatorship so that he had complete control and he just didn't have to deal with some of the bullshit, right? And I think that was absolutely the right move to make because if you're challenging the establishment in a first past the post system, then the charismatic leader has got to be able to do his thing. And it's worked, so well done. But now that they are in power, they need to transform this. They need a new constitution. They need to turn it into a real party. They need to be very careful about how they do that. They need to have some proper vetting to get rid of the crazy people. And they need to let people in. They need to let Bo Dale in, right? History bro. They need to let I don't know. I don't know what Liz Truss is going to do. I don't know what all these Tories that have just been kicked out of the Tory party are going to do. Who knows? Will Mogg join Reform? Is that a possible thing? Who knows? But we need he needs to invite. He needs to do what Gerard Batten did with UKIP, right? Which I supported. How many years ago? 6 years ago. Inviting all the E-celebs in, inviting everyone in, making it a big tent, a big party, a big rebellion, giving everyone a voice, giving everyone a place for meetings. That's what he needs to do. The big rallying point. If he does that, then reform would be great fun. It should be great fun. I would like to go to a meeting. I'm sure a lot of you listening to this, you're probably thinking, yeah, that'd be cool. Go to a Reform summer camp, go hang out with the Zoomers, right? Go out, hang out with the Zoomers and the Boomers and drink a few pints and talk about politics. I would genuinely like to go to a reform meeting if there was one in my local area. Definitely. And a lot of other people probably feel the same way. But that's only going to work if it's a big tent and everyone gets involved. So it's really up to Nigel whether or not that happens. Apparently he said that is what's going to happen. But then again, we live under a Labour tyranny now. And so reform is going to be persecuted and sued and done for libel, left, right and centre, for hate speech and God knows what. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to have that boisterous kind of... I mean, remember kicking out... what was his name? Remember they kicked out Godfrey Bloom for making his Ooga Booga comment, right? That was 10 years ago. Might even be more than 10 years ago. And that was in UKIP. And that was a different world, much more tolerant world. So, and there's the whole joke, like somebody stood up, called all the women in the party sluts. Everyone laughed, but the journalists saw it and they got upset. I mean, maybe things will change now that Farage actually is in Parliament and he's got his foot in the door, right? I'm hoping, because he's got his foot in the door, so he'll be on the news cycle. So I'm hoping Farage will relax a little bit and he'll realise he doesn't have to actually be so PC, because now he's at the table. But he does have a track record of being very PC and... So that's a bit of a worry. Nonetheless, if he does take that route, then I don't really see what other option we have at this point. I read Morgoth's blog. I'll read what he says. The Labour Archipelago. It's a nice... Here you go. This is what Morgoth says. I do not doubt there will be a buzz about pushing Farage into a leadership position in the years ahead. I just refuse to stake my dwindling belief in the system on such jelly-like foundations that can melt at any moment. No, we must now grit our teeth and prepare ourselves psychologically for what will come. Wow, that is epic. The end of the Tory cycle and the right generally being cast into the wilderness will, I think, result in more informal networks and organisations being created. That's it. That's Morgoth's plan. And then he goes on to say, years of censorship and blatant institutional bias have inured many people with a profound cynicism that the regime finds uncomfortable. So yeah, it's the plan is from Morgoth, right, the leader of the dissident right, everybody's darling. Everybody's like, Morgoth, he's the greatest, the great philosopher. The plan is, and I quote, more informal networks and organisations, right? The plan is, do not support Nigel Farage, do not get involved do not do entryism into reform, do not trust him. What we need is more informal networks and organisations. Whatever the fuck that means, I don't know. And by the way, this is what these people have been saying for the last 8 years. This is what the dissident right has always said. It's the same message. Yeah, we need to get together and create organisations. Okay, fucking fantastic. Well, that's really worked for the last 8 years, hasn't it? We had an 8-year-long opportunity under the Tory party to get that done, and now we're going to live under a Labour tyranny where probably most of us are going to get thrown in jail for hate speech. And now you're saying, oh yeah, this is the way forward. We need to grit our teeth. We need to prepare ourselves psychologically for what will come. It's serious. God, come on, mate. Come on. I don't really want to have to grit my teeth in the face of the monster. I'd rather join Reform and have a pint with Nigel Farage, right? And talk about some low-key, politically acceptable talking points that are not going to get me thrown in jail. And this has always been the path forward for us. This is what the left do, right? All those fucking pedos and weirdos. I mean, they did try and push that stuff in the 70s with Pi and all of that. And then it didn't work, and so they sunk back into the background, and they stay in the background of the Labour Party. And now we live in the world of transgenderism and all kinds of crazy shit going on in our schools. So their extreme far left policies are now being implemented, but they played the game of entryism. They played the game of take the center left and then just keep smoothly pushing that center left position until the whole of civilization is so far into the left that the right wing is actually left wing by any previous standard. In a similar way, for people on the far right like myself, the game to play is to take the center right position, sit there nice and comfortably, and then just push the whole of society in our generation in our direction. And it'll take a few decades, but that's it. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to have a violent revolution, right? I'm not stopping you if that's what you want to do, but I don't see anybody doing it. It seems like a dream. You want to have a dictatorship? Well, you got to seize power first, right? Even if we did have a dictatorship in this country, we would just get, to be honest with you, we'd just starve, basically. That's what a dictatorship... If we had a dictatorship in this country, we'd just starve. There you go, that's a quote. Because we don't grow enough food. We are not Russia. We are not America. And we don't live in medieval times. We don't grow enough food. We don't have our own oil supply. We don't make our own stuff. So we just get sanctioned. And that would be that. The government would collapse. There'd be chaos, economic collapse, everything. It would just be a disaster. So as much as I do like to fantasize about being the dictator of England and punishing all the bad people, realistically speaking, in terms of real politics on the international stage, we can't really do that. Because America's in charge now, and they would just shut us down. So the only path to victory is the democratic path, and it's to take the centre-right position and then gradually push the whole of our culture back in the right direction. And that's going to take decades, and it's going to be shit. But it's not even going to be that shit. I don't know. I mean, the people get upset about it and they think it's shit because, like I say, you've got to do your fitness, your finance, and then your fornication, and then your philosophy. If you got your fitness, your finance, and your fornication sorted out, then you're happy. You're having a good life. And the philosophy, the political side of things is an addition to that, right? And so what I'm trying to say is a lot of people, they want this extreme radical change because they're miserable in their own lives. They're miserable in their own lives, and they think, well, we'll just turn the whole political world upside down, and then I'll be happy. But if you're happy in your own life, then a slow, gradual change and shifting the country in the right direction doesn't actually sound that bad, right? So, yeah, this whole grit our teeth, fucking. Here's your leader, guys. This is your leader. I mean, we finally get Farage into Parliament. Finally got reform in Parliament, and the leader of the dissident right says, no, don't support him. And I mean, to be fair to Morgan, I understand it, because Farage, we've seen him banging the gong for the NHS, right? He is a bit wishy-washy. And we've seen him, I've seen him, we want less Polish people and more Indians. We've seen him say all this kind of shit. I just think he's a political player, and he has always taken that centre-right position. And I've seen that speech of his where he talks about Enoch Powell, and he says Enoch Powell was right about a lot of things, but he pushed the message too far, too soon. And you've got to play this game with the British public, and you've got to take the centre-right position. So that's why he bangs the gong. That's why he says he loves immigrants. That's why he says he crushed the far right in this country. I mean, you've got to understand, we're on the internet, people are living in a bubble. Go out and talk to ordinary people, And they think that Farage is far right. And they think he's an asshole. I know people like this. They think he's a fucking asshole. And they think that if you vote for UKIP or you vote for Reform, then you're an asshole. And you're somehow crazy and bad. There are people out there that think this kind of thing, you know? They're like, oh, God, Reform, ugh. There's a lot of these fucking people out there, and they're cunts. But what can I say? The country's full of cunts. You know? It's another delusion. By the way, like, let's just put this on the table, right? It's my last point. England's full of cunts. England is full of shit people, right? This whole idea, I know it's a romantic idea to imagine that there are all these patriotic English people out there who care about the country, and they care about Pakistani rape gangs, and they care about the immigration. They just want things to be fixed. That's just not real. All right? I mean, there is a few million, well, it's 4 million of them that care, essentially. Probably like 4 or 5 million, because 4 million voted for Reform. Probably some good people voted for the Tories. And then you've got other people who I think are good, like anti-vaxxers, who are maybe a little bit anti-government, so they didn't vote for anybody. I mean, at least 4 or 5 people didn't take the vax. But my point is that good people in this country are a minority. Somewhere between 4 and 10 million good people, I would say, in this country. And everyone else is just shit. They're just shit people. I'm sorry. But the state of your civilization is going to be a reflection of the morality of the people that live in it. And you can say that, well, the elites took over the country and they made the country shit, and this has degraded the morality of the people. And I would say, well, yes, you're right, they have. And the elites should take the blame for what has happened, or the majority of the blame, but nonetheless, if you're living in an age of decline, then you're living in an age of moral decline, which means the people of your country are morally broken and backwards, and that's just the reality. That's just it. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because, I don't know, people out there, they think, oh, revolution, and we'll take over and we'll fix everything. Look, guys, people in this country are shit, and they get what they deserve. Nobody forced you to take a vax. You know? Don't get me wrong, like I thoroughly sympathize with like your white dude, and he's walking down the street and he gets beaten up by refugees and what have you. Like, I understand all this, but I'm just saying, as a group, most people don't give a shit, and they want to stick their heads in the sand, and that's it. I mean, if everybody was as vocal about what's happening as I am, and as probably as you are, because I'm quite vocal about this stuff. Even at work, I talk about this stuff. And I've already got sacked once for talking about this shit. Do you know what I mean? So if everybody was as vocal as me, we'd just live in a different country. But people aren't vocal, and they're not vocal because they don't care. They don't fucking care. They don't care about Rotherham. They don't care. So, dreaming of a dictatorship or a violent revolution or some kind of grave struggle against the system to save the country, like, what do you want to do? You want to get yourself thrown in prison for a bunch of shit people who don't care about you and who think that you're evil. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. So take the nice, safe, cozy, centre-right position. Follow Farage. Yeah, he's going to say a lot of bullshit, left-wing nonsense, and probably waving a fucking rainbow flag or whatever the bullshit he's going to do, and and it's going to be a tough 5 years. But nonetheless, he's our man now. He's in Parliament. His opinions are going to get normalised, and we just take that centre-right position and we just move things in our direction. Practice entryism. I mean, by the way, By the way, there's an opportunity here for anybody who wants to get a decent job, to get a job on a council somewhere, right? I don't know how much those guys get paid, because the council system, the local government in England is weird. It's just like all over the flipping shop. Different systems in different parts of the country, but whatever. I mean, join Reform, wear a suit, get a haircut, be smart, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything too radical, and maybe when we have the local elections, you'll get a job as a councillor. You get paid 30 grand a year, or whatever it is they get paid for sitting on your ass doing nothing, right? You know what I mean? Like fucking join Reform, guys. Join Reform. That's it. That's the conclusion of the video. We need a 1 million man army in Reform. Nigel Farage needs to open up the gates, needs to let everyone in. We need a big party. A big tent. Farage's worry is going to be that if he has a big tent, he's going to get it done for libel. This has happened in UKIP before. They got sued for hundreds of thousands of pounds for libel because some crazy person said something. So I understand the worry, but there is safety in numbers. We need a 1 million man army in Reform. We need David Curtin to join Reform. We need UKIP to just merge into Reform. We need all of these people in Reform where they belong, and getting organised in all of the pubs. Like there should be like Reform night in your local pub. Do you know what I mean? You just go along and you talk to people and whatever. But we need this. A big political organisation with a massive membership, paying the membership fees, building the party apparatus that you need in order to, canvass and talk to people and so on and so forth. And then we just storm the local elections and get ready, get in place for 2029. That's it. Easy path to victory. Easy path to victory. There you go. Morgoth can't see it. But the academic agent, is he talking about it? Probably not. Accelerationists, doomers. There you go. What can you do? So there's my little ramble about the election. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times. We are so back. It is so over. We're going to go through a very transitory point in history. This is probably going to be England's lowest point, I think. This is going to be our worst point. This is going to be worse than Blair because the country's already full of Muslims. This is it. The dark times, but within the dark times, the seed of hope is there. We just need to grasp it. We need to give up all this insane revolutionary fucking bullshit. We need to give up the purity spiraling. We need to go to the pub, drink beer, and have sex and join Reform. Okay, thank you very much. God bless.